Now we're going to explore the first key strategy to achieve productive struggle, the right zone. When we are in the zone, we perform at our best. So our goal is to create that right zone for the child in every class. To do that, we need to make sure the questions and topics are just challenging enough, and we provide explanations and examples that match the child's interests. There's no doubt that the curriculum and the LEAP platform have a huge role to play in doing this, and the QMath team will be upgrading these continuously. But as a QMath tutor, you play a vital role too. How do you make sure that the child is working on the right level of difficulty? Let's start with looking at this video footage.
It's five. Find the missing number, find the missing number. 8 times 9 is 72.
This child had already got the first few problems right and was breezing through a few more. No sweat or struggle. We may think she's learning well, but the problem is that no real learning is happening here because the material is just too easy. The child's neural connections are neither being formed nor strengthened, and no delta is being created. It's like someone lifting weights much lighter than they possibly can. This is a no struggle scenario, and the child is not in the right zone. Now, let's look at another example.
After this, can we have a break?
Yeah.
4, right? And there's like A plus B, A minus B, and B minus, right? Like there's only 3, right? So does that mean only 3 number lines? Or is it like 2 might be like...
Okay. In case you're getting confused, you can read the question again. So look at number line, the first number line. What do you think? Are you getting confused at where are the, like, if you have to... I want you to first tell me what do you think about the question. Like, what did you understand? What are you supposed to do? Tell me that first. Which one is A minus B and which one is B minus A?
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't understand what you said. I don't know.
In this example, the child is having a really hard time. The problem is just too difficult for her. She asked for a break and was beginning to tune out. In fact, it was overwhelming for her and she began to cry. And the tutor is stepping in to solve the whole problem for the child. But do you think the child is learning this way or there's a delta being created here? No, because the tutor is doing the work that the child is supposed to do. It's like someone trying to lift very heavy weights far beyond their capacity, failing, and then having the gym instructor lift the weights for them. The problem was simply too tough for her at this point, and this leads to an unproductive struggle, meaning the child is not in the right zone of learning. So, how do you create this right zone where struggle leads to learning? Let's look at some strategies. First, keep probing the child's thinking. Are they finding the problem or concept too easy, or are they having a hard time with it? If it's too easy, you'll know because they'll finish it quickly and without any help. If they seem to be stuck or struggling, ask them to explain their understanding of the question, what they need to find, and where they are having trouble. Getting them to explain their thought process or demonstrate what they know on the whiteboard is a fantastic way to understand their thinking. We'll explore more about how to get children to express their thoughts in future videos. One really important thing to keep in mind here is that when we are checking a child's understanding, whether they're solving a problem or whether we are explaining a concept to them, we need to ensure we are not just pretending to check their understanding. For example, we often end our explanation by asking, "Did you understand this?" or "You got it right?" Well, the problem is that for such questions, most children always say yes in response, even if they haven't understood a thing. So let's not use such fake checks for understanding. We'll dig deeper into what this means and explore strategies for genuinely checking a child's understanding in the next video. Now, once you have figured out what's going on in the child's mind and where they are in their understanding, you need to take the necessary action to ensure they are in the right zone. This is our second strategy, adjusting the difficulty to match the child's abilities. You have 4 options to put the child in the right zone. Number 1, assign a similar problem to lock their current understanding. If the next problem in the worksheet isn't similar, you can use the whiteboard. Post a screenshot of the problem they just solved, change a few numbers, and have the child solve it. Number 2, provide a simpler or more challenging problem. Using the whiteboard again, post a screenshot of the question and modify it by removing some conditions to simplify it or add another layer to make it more challenging. Here's an example where I'm trying this with my own student.
Okay, let's try a slightly harder question. Okay.
Yes.
So the question is, imagine a point x comma y for which the x square is 1, the square of the x coordinate is 1, and the square of the y coordinate is also 1.
Since my student was finding plotting points on the graph fairly simple, I added a layer of complexity to make it a little challenging and interesting for her. You can also adjust the difficulty by altering the context to make it more relatable or more challenging. For instance, if a child is having trouble understanding why -2 minus -4 equals 2, you could use the analogy of an elevator in a building. -2 is 2 floors below ground and -4 is 4 floors below ground. Then ask them how they would get from -4 to -2. And hopefully, the child should understand it now. Number 3, assign extra practice sheets of lower or higher difficulty based on the child's needs and solve them in class. You can move the location of the current easy sheet to at home. Number 4, consider moving to a different topic or grade level. As QMath tutors, you might feel the need to cover as many problems or worksheets as possible in a class. When a child is having trouble with a particular problem, it can be tempting to step in, help them out, and then quickly move on to the next problem. However, in the rush to complete more problems and worksheets, the child's understanding might not fully develop at each stage and often remain half-baked. When one stage of learning is not fully understood or is half-baked, the following stages can seem increasingly difficult for the child. So, resist the urge to rush through problems or worksheets. As much as possible, ensure that the child locks in or fully understands and masters the current stage of learning before moving on to the next stage, even if it takes a bit longer than what you'd prefer. Think of it like a mason building a cement wall. If the mason pours one layer of cement and then without waiting for it to set, pours another layer and then another, the wall will inevitably collapse. The mason needs to wait for each layer to properly set before adding the next one. The same concept applies to learning. We need to focus on mastery over completion. Let's quickly recap what we have learned so far. We discussed the idea of productive struggle, where the child is challenged just enough to grow, but not so much that they become overwhelmed and disengage. We explored the concept of the right zone, the optimal learning environment where a child is neither bored with easy tasks nor overwhelmed with overly hard ones. The right zone fosters productive struggle. As QMath tutors, your role is critical in maintaining this right zone. This involves probing the child's understanding continuously and adjusting the level of challenge accordingly. We explored 4 strategies to adjust the challenge: assigning a similar problem, providing a simpler or more challenging problem, assigning additional practice sheets, or moving to a different topic or grade level. Lastly, we talked about the importance of focusing on mastery over completion, ensuring that the child thoroughly understands the concept before moving on to the next.